Okay, I think I'm good. Cool. So, art studio bathroom once again. And this is the excess that I couldn't get out with the... Yeah. My throat's really dry. Hold on. Ugh. Give me 1 second. This is basically showing how much pulp is still in the bottom of it, even after getting as much as I could with the paper decks. There you go. Look at that. So it is really heavy, unfortunately. So this is either going to end really, really well or very, very bad. But like I said, this is the excess pulp that was on the bottom that I couldn't really get with the decks themselves because it was either getting really, really thin to where it was just flopping all over the place or it was just, yeah. So I'm going to show you the aftermath. Very gently pour this. I didn't do nothing gently just then. This is going to take a few go-arounds because the sink is being a pain in my butt again. Oh, Jesus. Okay, so my sink is going to be a pain in my butt today. I'm going to have to take it apart again and give it a look-see. I also poured it really fast, too, and my sink does not like that. I don't know why it hates it, but it's kind of going down. I'm going to have to, like I said, take it apart again and get it cleaned out. See what the problem is. But it is slowly going down with the water. That's why I also said, take your time with it, because, I got some on my shirt. So I say take your time with it because it will splash or you spill it like I just did, and nobody wants that extra mess. So go slow with it. And all that good jazz. Well, it's going to come up anyway. But again, my sink is a jerk sometimes. So it doesn't always want to listen to me. Haha! Now, yes, there is still some in there, which is why I'm about to grab my handy bowl and grab some from the bathtub, because that's full, obviously. Oh. Here you go. You don't need too much. You don't need too much water, just enough to slosh it around. Just enough to loosen up the excess pieces. And technically also doing it that way too, you're also kind of cleaning out the tub as well. You're also cleaning out your paper tub as well, so I'm just going to flip this upside down in the bathtub because I'm not going to need that anymore. I don't really know how to get an angle for you guys on this one. And kind of like pasta, where you're trying to get that excess water out, you just shake it around. Sometimes, with how full it is like this, you're gonna... God, that's a lot of paper. Jesus. You're gonna kind of want to use your hands and not put pressure on it, but kind of like gently mix it around. Kind of like you're making bread or a pizza dough, or you're like washing your salads and stuff like that. That's so weird. That was not the car. And sometimes, if you're lucky, not a lot of pulp will come back up on your hands sometimes. Yeah. That's how much of pulp that was left over. This part does get a wee bit messy, so it is okay if it flies a little bit. But you literally just want to try to shake out as much as you can. And you know when a lot of it comes out, oops, you know a lot of it comes out when it starts peeling up like, I don't really have a good way of explaining it. Kind of like really, like, I want to say like mashed potatoes, because like if you make mashed potatoes a certain way, you can actually get them to be like moldable but loose at the same time. I'm making a mess right now, but that is okay. Try to get everything off of the sides. You know, it's pretty good when it starts sticking to itself. And you can like kind of mold it in a way. There you go. Alrighty. I did make a little bit of a mess. So I'm just going to put that in there, and I'm going to actually wipe this down a little bit. Which I don't have a small rag, but I'm about to. Hey Angel, why don't you just use a sponge? Because I don't remember where I put them all at. And the best part about doing it this way, you get to reuse the paper pulp that you already made. None of it goes to waste. You're not clogging up a drain. And the cleanup is super duper simple. Because it doesn't take much. So doing it this way, you're reusing the extra pulp that you could have just flushed down the drain, which would lead to clogging and a whole bunch of no problems that nobody wants to deal with. Especially myself, I do not want to deal with that at all, whatsoever. And instead of... Hold on. And instead of refilling your tub and re-going through... I had extra bits on here. Whoopsie, just gonna throw you in the pile. Another rag that needs to get cleaned apparently today. Well, not today, but next week, because I just did laundry. Well, I'm just gonna keep you over here then. So instead of re-going through the process of... I could just bring my bowl. I'm in here. So instead of re-going through the entire process of refilling up your tub and stuff like that, just keep the extra pulp in here, like in the strainer and stuff like that, and only a little bit extra water came out while it was just hanging out like that. Still totally perfectly fine. But I'm going to show you the thing I did when I first thought of the idea. I'm like, you know, that's actually a great little money saver. Not really a money saver, but it's still a gosh darn good idea. I'm going to turn that down a little bit more, just in case. You're not really going to need the blow dryer, really. Like, maybe, sort of, kind of, but I personally don't think you're really going to need it. Trying to set it up right a little bit. But just in case, I'm probably still going to end up using it anyway. Just as I want to make sure this is dried kind of thing, because it is... It still does have, like... Here we go. Because it still does have a little bit of moisture in there, or a nice bit of moisture. The better be. Mana do 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 do. Mana da 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 da. Anyway, there is a still nice bit of moisture in there, but I use whatever size. Like for example, because there is a lot in there, so I'm just going to use the large one for an example. Which I could probably use all three if I had to. And I'm not really going to squeeze. Yeah, I can't really do that anyway. I'm not going to really try to squeeze a lot of the moisture out. Just some of it because it will thin out anyway. And I know this is really thick and this is where the problem comes in on occasion. But then you kind of just want to like do it by hand. Kind of like that's what I'm looking for. Paper mache, I guess. You know, I'm just going to use this whole batch on this one. Screw it. Like paper mache, kind of. Because with the moisture, it does make it a little bit easier to smooth out, kind of. But again, you're not really going to want to push too hard on it. Because, one, it is coming out through the bottom. So you're kind of re-wetting your... Oh, that's not going to work. That is way too much. Okay, so scratch that. So we're not going to use the big one. Kind of thought we were, but we're not. And that just made the bottom a little bit wetter, which is fine. We're going to use the medium one instead. I could probably get like a medium and a small in here. But again, you're just going to kind of want to like flatten it out a little bit without using too much pressure. It's like kind of like dab it in together a little bit. Because when you're pushing down, you kind of want to like pull it a little bit. Also kind of like pizza dough. Either you've used fresh or frozen. It's still delicious pizza dough. And then use like the little bits for the corners and stuff like that. Now, with it being this thick, because you are putting it directly into it. God, do I really not need a large medium too? Well, gosh darn it, I'm going to make this work. Because it is really thick. Like, this is a chunk kind of paper, like I was explaining in the other video. Ooh, that's kind of thin. Wow, crap, what was I saying? Oh, because it is such a thicker piece, it is going to take a lot longer to dry. So as much moisture you can get out of it now is probably going to be your best bet of it being slightly easier to dry. But again, that's like as much moisture as you can. Sometimes you can't really get all of it out, which is, again, why we do the drying process, which I still need to get that fixed up. But that's why, like I was saying before, like sometimes the drying process, depending on how thick it is, it will take a whole lot longer than normal. And if you didn't get all the moisture out, or at least a good amount of the moisture out, it will take even longer kind of thing. So it's get as much of the moisture. Get as much of the moisture out of it during this process. Like the whole sponge and stuff like that in the dryer. Get as much as you can out with that. And then do the actual drying process with the small heater or whatever you have. And honestly, you don't even have to do it like this. You could like put this in like a mold or something like that and shape it into something else. You don't have to do this part. You don't have to do any of this, actually, you know. And then with the little bit that's left over, just kind of fill in some of those gaps, because I have a few in here. It's not a lot, but it is noticeable in some spaces, and when it dries, it will be very noticeable in the light. But yeah, kind of think about it as like you're making a beef patty. I know I probably shouldn't have just used a food thing for this, but it seems kind of right. But basically just fill up some of those kind of thinner spots kind of thing. And if you do have like a little bit extra, kind of like how I did, don't try to squeeze it all in there, because then that's not a good idea. Because, it's sometimes I think about this, I could have done this a little bit better. But, yeah, you don't have to use your excess paper pulp like I just did. Especially if you don't want to, you don't have to. Okay, that's all the paper pulp. So, kind of like how we did it before. Except this time, for me, I'm doubling the paper towels on this one. Again, you don't have to. You can just keep it like how I did, but it will help soak up more of the moisture, kind of, because I did literally just leave a giant puddle. So it'll help a little bit on that. Excuse me. Bloop. And it is really thick, so it is actually going to take a few run-throughs of getting out the excess moisture, but you already got a good amount of it out when we were tossing it in a way in the strainer. But you can clearly see like there is still a lot more moisture in there that I'm not getting out. And it's also kind of when you're pressing it down with this one, again, you don't want to do it too hard. But also when you're doing it like this, though, it also kind of helps it even out a little bit on the other side. That's a lot of paper, or that's a lot of moisture. So it kind of helps this way, too, to like make it a little bit more even on the other side when you're pushing it down. But this thing is actually really thick. Honestly, I think next time I go to do this, I might make a mold and put the excess paper in there and let it dry that way. And see what we can come up with. And just in case, because I'm not really sure if this is going to peel up. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, holy Tolotes. Okay, well, there you go. And you can tell there's a little bit in the corner. I'm just going to put that back in its respective little spot. Okay, so I didn't need to do that. It's actually kind of worked, and I get to prove a thingy on fixing up little spots if some come up. Which was only those 2 spots, and then a little bit on the sides, so... So yeah, that was actually kind of cool. Wasn't expecting it to do that for me, but okay. But you can like really tell like that's a thicken. Like he thick. He's super thick. So this is definitely gonna take I'm probably gonna say a few days, maybe a little bit longer than I was planning on. So this would actually, I would let this go. I'll let this be on top for a few days and let the heater soak up some of the moisture from it kind of thing. I actually kind of was thinking I was going to need the hair dryer, but I didn't. But I would let the heater sit on this for a little bit to help some of the moisture dry out. I know not a lot of it is going to dry out, but I would leave it alone for a little bit while it's drying with the heater and stuff like that. Make sure it gets it directly. Your brakes, madame. Your brakes. Anyway. Because this is actually going to take a lot longer than the other ones, because obviously it's as thick as a mini book, so I would definitely let this get let this be in front of the heater longer than the rest of the papers, because this is going to take a lot longer. But always, like, every so often on, like, the third day, I would say, like, occasionally, like, do a hand test and go, okay, that's not as wet as what it was before, it's not as damp as it was before, kind of thing. And then flip it over and let the rest get it, because by the time the rest are done, this should be decent on the other side, because as everything is drying up, the paper towels are going to be drying as well and all that stuff. So it's like, as the days go on, more and more of the heat will get through them and stuff like that. But I would definitely leave the really, really thick one up top for a little bit. I probably should have just used the large instead of doing this way, but you know, just trial and error. But I did just want to show you guys on how to do it that way with the strainer and all that stuff, which again is another reason why I wanted the strainer. Besides it being easier to get the first round done, like when you're soaking the paper for the 24 hours or 2 days, depending on how you feel. And doing it that, because it does make it a lot easier, especially if you can't get like that little bit like I couldn't get kind of thing. So it kind of helps. But, yeah, that is pretty much going to be it for the day, because I do have a thing I have to start figuring out on how I'm going to glue it together, or even if I want to glue it together. I don't really know just yet. It's kind of up in the air at the moment. But, I will definitely come back when that part is ready, because this can wait until tomorrow for the drying process if needed. It doesn't, like, have to be done right now, right away kind of thing. But this is probably going to hang out for the night, for me at least, until I get the paper, the drying block. I'm just going to call it the drying block. It's going to make sense later. But I do have to glue that together fairly, once I figure out what the best way is to get it dry, or to get it glued, or even if I want to get it glued, I don't know yet. This is kind of just... This whole thing was a last minute decision. But, don't worry about covering the top piece of paper, or in this case, the top chunk. Don't really worry about putting a paper towel over that, because it's all going to be getting hit directly with the little heater. But once I get that all set up and all that ready and started and stuff, that'll be the next video. So, tomorrow, roughly, I think. I don't really know. I'm gonna say tomorrow, yeah. Because if I can get everything, if I can figure out how I'm gonna get that block done, and then tomorrow, yeah, I think everything should be good for tomorrow. Because then I can spend the rest of the day, because it's already 5-something, I can spend the rest of the time, to an extent, trying to figure out how I'm going to do this. Once I figure out how I'm going to put the pieces together, then I'm either going to do another video for it, or do another video on that, or just, like I said, just wait until tomorrow and do everything. But most definitely, do not cover the top layer. Let the thick piece dry a little bit first, like get some of the moisture out and stuff like that, and then flip it over. I'm probably gonna do a video of that so you guys can like see. I know at a certain point it's not gonna look like it even dried or anything like that, but if I show you guys like how it should kind of start looking and then the flip over, then I think it should make a little bit more sense. I have 2 towels. So I have one that I use for the first round, and then when I go to flip it over, I flip it on that towel, which is my black towel. Or whatever big sheet, or whatever big towel or rag that I have at the moment. Excuse me. Which I'm probably going to use the other one. The draining rag instead of using the black towel, but we'll figure it out tomorrow. But yeah, that is what I do when I have that last little bit, which was half a pound it felt, but it wasn't. But that's basically what I do with that last little bit. is that I mold it in the thing that I'm using, and then I end up with this thicken. So that should be it's gonna be a fun little adventure for the next few days. Just probably shouldn't have done this in summertime, but I really want to do more. But anyway, I will see you guys either later on in the day or tomorrow, depending on how things work out. But until then, I will see you guys soon. Toodaloo.